I believe God has a reason for bringing us here together this morning, and that has much to do with the second coming of Jesus. I believe is going to be soon. Can you say amen to that? Going to be soon. Before I begin, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you this morning. This is a church that holds some great significance for me. I was going to wait till this afternoon. You know, I don't tell the story because the minute I tell the story, people start talking and words get twisted. But it was in 2013 that I was invited to speak at the Mentone Church. Nina, is Nina here? She might be there. Nina is responsible for getting me here in the first place. She saw me at Pine Springs Ranch and said, "Hey, why don't you come down and be here at Mentone?" I said, "Sure, I'd like to." Although that was in 11 and I was here in 13, so maybe it just took me a long time to get around to it. And anyway, some interesting things happened, and I happened to be, so I went to the door and shook hands after speaking at the worship service, and was about the last one out of the door. And then when it came time to sit down for lunch, there was nowhere to sit. And I said, "It's no problem. We have my wife and our 2 kids. It's 4 of us, and some friends and their 2 kids. So 8 of us. We were there, and we said, "It's just not a problem. You know, I'm good at standing. I can stand and eat. You know, horses do it all the time. It's not new. I can do it." Well, I don't know who the deacon was at the time, but he was a Filipino man, and he was appalled at the idea that the guest speaker would be standing to eat. So he rushed away and came back and said, "I have 2 places for you." I said to the friends, "You can go." They, No, it's okay, we're standing." I said, "Brother, it's all right. Standing is fine." And then he came back and said, "I have 4 places for you." And we asked them, and they didn't want to go, and we weren't going to take the 4 places. And so we said, "Man, it's good, just relax." He came back triumphant. He said, "I have 8 places for you." And so when we arrived at the table, there were people wiping them around and picking up their plates. I think he evicted them is what he did. I think he evicted them. Anyway, we sat down, and so there were eight places, and I could have sat any one of them. And I sat at the one I sat at. Now, what I didn't tell you, I still won't tell you. So I sat, you know, I think probably third from this end. And there was a kindly man sitting across from me. He had helped me get my microphone on, and not wanting to seem friendly, and I thought I should acknowledge that he had helped me. I said, "Hey, so you helped me." I said, "Fantastic, thank you. And what's your name?" And he said, "Steve." I said, "Good to meet you, Steve. I'm John. What do you do?" He said, "I work at the hospital." I said, "We're really narrowing it down here." And I said, "Well, what do you do at the hospital where you work, Steve?" He said, "I teach." I said, "So what do you teach at the hospital where you work, Steve?" And he said, "Head and neck surgery." And I looked at him and he noticed that I gave him a look. I didn't intend to give him a look. I hadn't rehearsed it. It wasn't in the script. He said those words, and I said, "You're an ENT." He said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Why? What?" He could tell there was something going on. And I said, "Well," "look, there's no point bothering you." But he said, "No, go ask. If you have a question, ask." He said, "Well," I said, "I do have a question." I said, "I have a spot on my tongue that's really, really sore." And my wife had made a phone call to a friend of hers who's a doctor over here at the hospital, and she tried to fix us up with an ENT near where we lived. This is near because we lived in Simi Valley at the time. And that appointment fell through, but what didn't fall through was this pain in my tongue. It was like lava in my mouth. And I said, "Well, I've got a sore spot on my tongue." He said, "Let me take a look." I'm like, "No, going to let you do that. Look at my mouth. Eating my lunch. No. He said, it's what I do. I do this for a living. He said, let's go. So 5 minutes later, we were standing behind one of those pillars. He was peering into my mouth. And he said, yeah, you want to get that? Yeah, you need to have that looked at. We would need to biopsy that. I said, can you do it? He said, yeah, I could do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday. I think Wednesday. I said, okay, I'll be back. And I came back on Wednesday. It was like late July, early August. I came back on Wednesday. And Steve's partner, Chuck, took the little ice cream scooper thing that they use and dug it into my tongue and took out a little chunk of whatever the sore spot was. And they said, well, that's that. We'll get back to you if there's any news. I had already been to a dentist who did something that you would actually equate to malpractice. He was a dentist. I won't tell you where he practiced because it's going to be too easy to identify, but he taught somehow on the faculty at the hospital where Steve worked, and I think probably shouldn't have. He was worse than useless. But I went to see, and if on the off chance, Mr. Dentist, you hear that? You hear me say that? You were worse than useless. And so Steve had me at his place, and Chuck took a little chunk out of my tongue, and it must have been on Tuesday, because when he called me, I was in Florida for the National ASI Convention, and I was driving in my car, no, in someone else's car actually, with my 2 children and their friend, and we were driving to a health food restaurant in order to have lunch. Man, I can't even remember the name of it. I think it was Red Robin. Have you heard of that one? It's a health food. A health food place. Is that right? French fries are vegan. And so while we were driving to lunch, it's for my kids, of course. While we were driving to lunch, the phone rang, and being one of these guys who would never answer the phone while I was driving, I grabbed the phone and answered it because it was from Dr. Steve. And I said, hello? And he said, hello? And he said, we got the results of the biopsy. And I said, oh? And he said, the news is not good. It's cancer. And I said, all right then, so what are we going to do about it? And anyway, we arranged that I go back to see Steve, who works at the hospital where he teaches, and this time he put his skills to work and operated on my tongue and removed a tumor that was nice and cancerous. Anyway, then I had follow-up treatment, and the radiation man said to me again and again and again, your surgeon did an excellent job. Your surgeon did an excellent job. He must have told me 10 times over the next 6 weeks, your surgeon did an excellent job. I think you're going to beat this, he said to me. I said, well, what gives you the right to say that? He said, well, we worked you over pretty good with the radiation, and trust me, they did. And then he said, and your surgeon did an excellent job. And then this backslidden Jewish doctor said to me, he said, your faith is going to help you an awful lot as well. I thought that was fascinating. So anyway, the good news is I don't have cancer and haven't for about 11 years. I stand before you alive and well, thanks to the Mentone Church. So thank you. I know, thank God, sure, I thank him almost every day. But if I hadn't come here, if Nina had not brokered the deal that got me here to speak at the Mentone Church, and if I'd not come, and if that nice deacon hadn't booted 8 people out of their place. So by the way, when somebody says to you, hey, you got to get out of there, you could be saving somebody's life by doing that. And I also wonder what might have happened if I'd sat down at the other end of the row and not opposite Steve, who teaches at the hospital. Things would have worked out very differently. So I'm happy to be back here to say to whoever constitutes the Mentone Church, thank you for saving my life. That's what happened as a result of me coming here. I am exceedingly grateful. A little bit has changed since then and now. We are now a resident of Tennessee. Yeah, that's right. Thanks. I had to think about it for a moment. We're in Collegedale, about 2 miles from Southern Adventist University. Oh, and by the way, for goodness sake, please don't tell anybody I have cancer. One of the reasons I just don't tell the story. Just a week ago, somebody I